A man named Kevin Cox is the owner of Bergeron's restaurant in Port Allen, Louisiana, and he decided as a promotion he would offer armed police officers a discount on their food. Well, another customer saw this and asked if the same deal could apply to regular people who go to the restaurant. So, in other words, if a plumber or an accountant came in strapped, would they get a discount? He said yes. Quote, "I just need to see a weapon. I need you to be carrying a gun. As long as everybody has a gun, we're all the same size. I keep hearing so much about people banning guns. Target's banning guns and these people are banning guns. They don't realize that that's where people with guns are gonna go. I don't want to take the opposite approach. How can I make my place safer? My friends and relatives would come in with their guns on their holster. I felt good about that. It made me feel safer that they were there with their gun. So why not include all good citizens with the officers too? If you have a gun on you, I'm going to give you a discount." More from Raw Story. Quote, "There's so many people who are trying to take our guns away, and the government makes stricter gun laws. They forget that we're given the right in the Constitution to keep and bear arms." So, let's just get this out of the way right off the top here so crazy people don't attack me needlessly. Am I in favor of somebody who owns a restaurant on their own private property doing whatever the fuck they want on that private property? So if you own a restaurant and you decide that you want to give people a discount if they have weed on them, by all means go ahead and do it. If you own a restaurant and you're just like this jackass who wants to give people a discount when they carry a gun, whatever, man. I mean, look, I don't like the fact that you're encouraging people to carry guns, but it's your restaurant, your decision. You can go right ahead and do that if you so please. Okay? But here's the reality that you should understand before you implement said policy. That doesn't make your restaurant safer. It makes it less safe. That's an empirical, verifiable fact. Okay? Whether or not you choose to realize it is a different story. But it's not me saying it. It's a Harvard study that was done on this exact issue saying it. More guns does not equal more peace. Because this is the way, I've described this before on air, but I'll go through it again for people who may not have heard it. This is the way that the conservative orthodoxy goes. This is their argument. They say, well, there are more good people in the world than bad people, so if you arm everybody, the good people outnumber the bad people, and therefore there will be peace because the good people would be able to protect anybody if the bad people started shooting. Now, to be overly fair to them, that definitely makes sense in theory. Like, if you write it down on paper and read it out, you go, okay, that's logically consistent, okay? Here's the problem. It doesn't work when you actually apply it in real life. It turns out the opposite is true, that more guns equals more gun violence. Very simple equation. The more guns you have in circulation, the more gun violence there's going to be. Now, the evidence for that is overwhelming, not just from the Harvard study, which literally said that in the conclusion, but also anecdotally. Look at the United States of America. We have some of the laxest gun laws of the modern industrial nations. We have over 300 million guns in circulation. So according to the right-wing orthodoxy and their argument, well, since we have more guns, we will obviously have more peace, right? So compare us to places that don't have as many guns, and whichever one has more peace, that proves who's right. And what's the reality? The United States has 32,000 gun deaths on average every single year. That includes everything. Homicides, suicides, accidents, you name it. 32,000! How many are there in France? Less than 100. How many are there in Britain? Less than 100. Australia? Same thing. Japan has very few, if any, guns. They had, 6 gun deaths in the year 2006, and it was like a fucking national scandal. So that's the reality. More guns equals more gun violence. Sorry, when you buy a gun and you put it in your house, in theory you're protecting yourself, but actually, statistically, you just increase the likelihood of your ass getting shot simply by bringing the gun in the house. I know math is a hard thing to grasp, but it is what it is. You can't argue against it. Numbers are numbers. Facts are stubborn things. So that's the reality. Again, if they want to go ahead and do this and be silly, by all means go ahead, but just know the reality. You're actually putting people in danger. See, in their mind, they think like, well, the people who come to my restaurant are good people, so if they're armed, everything will be okay. But that disregards maybe one of them snaps and has a psychotic breakdown and kills people. Or maybe there's just an accident. But if there's no guns laying around, you can't have people getting shot. But if there are guns there, they're going to get shot. And finally, last thing, the idea that the Second Amendment was for people to carry handguns into a restaurant in the year 2014. That's what the founders were thinking when they wrote it. No, you know what the founders were thinking about? Indians and bears and the British when they wrote that. And they were also talking specifically about muskets because that's all that fucking exists. And it takes 17 and a half minutes to reload. Today, it takes no time at all, right? It's very quick. So, just for fuck's sake, learn some history. And also understand the Second Amendment was never about an individual's right to bear arms. They say in the amendment itself, it's for a militia. Are you in a fucking militia? If you want to be literal, if you're in a militia, you have a right to a musket. There, if we're being literal about the Second Amendment. I love how they think they're being literal when they say, yeah, I could carry my handgun into a restaurant. And by the way, even Antonin Scalia, one of the most conservative justices in Supreme Court history, agrees with us and says, no, of course the government can, regulate different kinds of guns because those guns didn't exist back then.